Okay, let's begin our roundtable discussion. This huge conference is coming to an end. So with this roundtable discussion, it was a very successful conference, I think. I'm sorry. Before we move on to our roundtable discussion, I think we have to congratulate Korean University because we didn't mention this, but this conference is organized by Korea University and celebrating their 120th anniversary. Wow, 120 years. So I really want to really give congratulations, Korea University faculty members and everyone. Okay. Okay. So our roundtable discussion topic is huge. So it's almost impossible to have a discussion because if you look at the title, it's Rethinking Theory and Methods for the Future of the Digital Humanities. So we have these huge three keywords: theory, methods, and the future. So I don't think 1 hour will be enough. But I think this is a very good opportunity for us to freely talk about these issues because our presentations is all about their own research. So it's very specific. But what a good chance to share our ideas and opinions, not just their own special areas, but also in general parts of digital humanities. And also we are all from different countries, from United States and China and South Korea. And even on the floor, we have many different scholars from different countries. So what a wonderful opportunity to share with our different views and experiences and prospects. So I will lead the discussion, but don't feel pressured. So just share your ideas freely. Because this is a very huge topic. So one thing I want to begin is that last night we had a reception, even though, I didn't mention, Leve Manovich was originally scheduled to be here, but he couldn't join us. I feel sorry for that. But so that's why we have three panel members. Last night we had a reception in our personal conversation. One of the professors at Korea University asked me, "What is digital humanities after all?" I don't think she doesn't know about the definition of digital humanities because she's working in this field. But the reason why she's asking the question is, so what is this? What's the fundamental principles and definitions? So before we talk about the future of digital humanities and this theory and very difficult topics, I think it's a very good way to approach this issue is to get back to the fundamentals, get back to the roots of digital humanities. So I think that's the way to begin with, think about the roots and the principles is that the definition of digital humanities. What is digital humanities? So, because it's another difficult question for you to answer right away. So while you are thinking about your own personal definition of digital humanities, let me explain why I think this is an important question to you. First of all, when you talk about the roots of digital humanities, I have in mind two things. One is the Digital Humanities Manifesto 2.0. It is published in 2009. I'm not sure many of you are aware of that document, but it was always an inspiring document for me because it was a manifesto. So even though you are not aware of that, let me remind you. It's all about counterculture. They say digital humanities began with this hippie Western California, hippie counterculture movement. So our background is there. So the basic impulse of digital humanities, at least in the United States, is all about this non-commercial, anti-authoritarian, public-friendly, and collaboration, openness. So we have these principles. But while we are having a discussion all day long, Molie, you talked about caring and very inspiring talk. So it has the same root, the digital humanity. Many people think when they think about digital humanities, they just think it's just a combination of digital technology and humanities. But that's too simplistic, right? But when we think about the roots of digital humanities, it's all about caring and collaboration and preserving the minor voices. So I think that's one very important aspect and principle of digital humanities we should not forget. And your presentation was a living proof why it's such an important issue, and even for the future, right? So I think in terms of, that's why I talk about the manifesto. At the same time, have you ever thought about the word digital? So it has a Latin origin, and it is digitus. Digital, it means fingers, right? The digitus is the fingers. So you can interpret the word digital in two ways. One way is about fingers. It's counting numbers, 0, 1. So it's these binary numbers. Yeah, that's what we usually think about digital as computation and calculation numbers. But the second thing we should not forget is about hand. Hand is our body part that touches and doing things. And we shake hands with other people. So we connect to other people, we make things, we collaborate with each other. So that's why we have to get back to the root meaning of the word digital. So digital is not just about numbers, calculation, quantification. It's also about human contact, human cooperation, and coalition you talked about. So while remembering these roots, we can begin to think about the theory. What should be the theoretical background and principles, and what kind of methods we have to develop or promote to encourage these principles. And also, I think that's the beginning of how we can think about the future. So without that roots, we cannot think about the future. So that's my starting point. So I'll give you a chance. I think you had enough time to think about your own. So don't worry, but just simple, your own definition of digital humanities. And maybe many people on the floor have their own definition. You may have a discussion about the digital humanities. Let's begin with the definition of digital humanities.
Okay. So digital humanities, where the digital meets the humanities. In Black digital humanities as a field, I would say that there are sort of three ways of practicing the digital humanities. So one would be the use of digital mediums, where we're digitizing photographs, or we're putting material out on the web to kind of maybe reach the public. And in the Black digital humanities, I would say that that's sort of predominant. That kind of cultural heritage work is a huge strain in the field. There is also the study of born digital material, which I think is part of the field of Black digital humanities. So there might, like, for example, looking at Black Twitter and studying how people are using Twitter, but also reclaiming other technologies, maybe pre-digital technologies like quilting, for example, as evidence of Black technological creativity, because Black people are often seen as like outside of the digital or not having access or not, kind of controlling that sphere. And so there's a lot of work that is about really kind of reclaiming the creative work that Black people are doing in digital and other technological spaces. And then finally, there's that sort of digital computing, right? Like, so using computational analysis to do humanities work. And there, actually, I think there is a fair amount of skepticism within Black digital humanities because there's a long history of treating Black people as things. And so there is some fear and skepticism toward the treatment of Black people as data points, right? And so we have, big projects in the field like I think it's called Slave Voyages, which has done really incredible work in sort of tracking the kind of like movement of enslaved people from Africa to the New World, but has received some criticism, especially in its early stages, for just treating all of those people as nothing but data points, or sort of reinscribing the enslaver's archive, if that makes sense. And so there is a kind of critical strain within Black digital humanities about this kind of computing or even about big data, and so the emphasis is to always center the human, right? If you're doing digital humanities, you can do that computational work, but it always has to center the human. And so you often see mapping projects or data projects, data analysis projects that are then accompanied by oral history projects, right? So that we don't forget the humans behind the data points.
Wow. I think you are touching on very important issue and also sensitive part, because even though it's a universal issue, because all in a big data study, all human individuals is becoming data points, just one data cell, right? One column, right? We exist as one column. But maybe we are not acute about that issue. But in terms of African American studies, it's very, as you said, slaves was objects or possessions. So they have to be much more sensitive, being treated as just simply data points, not as human beings. So I think this, even though this very specific issue to the African American studies, but at the same time, it is a universal reverberation, right? So it is universal appeal, because after all, we all human beings are becoming reduced to simple data points. So that's one thing we have to remember too. Digital humanities always have to be about what is human, right, how to preserve humanness in the age of AI and digital technology, right? You have something more to say?
Just to add, so Miriam Posner has talked about this, and I think someone mentioned it, I think maybe Leve mentioned it yesterday, that like when we turn people into data, we have to reduce them, right? And in doing so, we might actually represent them in ways that they wouldn't represent themselves, right? So, gender or even ethnic identity, we might have much more complicated understandings of our ethnic identity than the way the census records in the United States represent us or other databases.
Yeah. It's about representation, and representation is a very key aspect of literary studies. Song-Hyun Chung is a specialist. I remember yesterday we had a student presentation, poster presentation. One of the students, maybe from Seoul National University, she talked about this painful experience. And she highlighted the gap between official record and personal experience. I think it's all about representation. So this official state-powered representation of individual sufferings, and this real person's living experience, right? So how to represent this living experience? I think Leve yesterday also touched on this issue too. This this modeling. And maybe this modeling can ignore the specificities and particularities of individual experiences. Wow! But so that's why digital humanities is very important, because all this big tech technology doesn't care about individual human uniqueness, right? Okay, so Song-Yan.
Okay, so yeah, digital humanities. What I think about digital humanities, basically, it's composed of two words: digital plus humanities. So it looks like a simple binary, binary where humanists provide the theory or interpretation, and data scientists provide the technical skill. But I mean, this turns out to be a methodological failure. The study of humanities for me has always been a sort of solitary pursuit. So my ideal model has always been, the individualistic lone scholar model. But I have to abandon that. So we need to redefine, interdisciplinary language. I mean, ways to invent a new common language or shared curriculum. So how can humanists, understand the logic of data science, and data scientists can grasp the ambiguity and complexity of humanistic questions? So yeah, so inventing common language. I mean, language common for all, humanists and data scientists. So yeah.
Yeah. So when you talk about this lone scholar in the traditional humanities studies, lone scholar in the traditional humanities studies, yeah, that was what I was. So I think many of us here was a lone scholar working alone, working hard on their materials. But digital humanities changed the paradigm. We are working together. It's almost impossible to work alone. Even in your case, it's a huge whole citizens.
So the most important method we need to think about is collaboration itself.
Collaboration, yeah. So actually, yeah. So we talked about this collaboration before we begin this discussion. You remember, right? Yeah. Right.
Okay. So yeah, just as our professor just talked, that the digital humanity has a should be close related to human, not only digital. Digital is only a tool, but nowadays that because everything is digitized, the material are digitized, the methods are digitized, and just as what I presented in the morning, initially we thought after the book was digitized, it is still a book, but actually when the material are digitized, when the digitized text become intelligent agent, the relation between us and knowledge has changed, because as McLuhan said, the content is the knowledge, is the contents has kind of decisive rules in the information communication. The media is the content. So in this new situation, how to still keep the connection among people, that's become a very challenging problem. In China, when we teach, the situation is changed totally. Just several years ago, when you give a lecture, the students pay attention to you, but nowadays, students pay attention to the cell phone, to the computer. They didn't give you a lie. So the teacher, at least for me, is very frustrated. The student just doesn't pay attention to what you said, no matter how much you have prepared for your material. So in lunchtime, I talked with Molie about that. I think the problem has two sides. On one side, how the student, how the new generation can get out from the digital environment. We thought that the digital enhanced our ability, but in another viewpoint, it's become a new constraint. We are constrained in the digital presentation of the real world. On one side, how the student can come out from the digital virtual world, not here. But for teacher, what can we present to student? What can we offer help? What kind of help a student still need from us? If only for knowledge teaching. The students thought OpenAI is better than you. And at least they know more about the teacher. So what can we have, can offer to students? What's the homework what kind of homework can we give students to finish after the class? And what we can say to trigger the student interest in the classroom? That we try to figure out in this new environment. Actually, I have begun to change the classroom. I have to change the way I teach. I asked the student to collaborate with me to finish the project. I just most of the time in classroom, I ask the student to do some handoff work, to do some work, needs collaboration, needs discussion, not only the knowledge, the teaching knowledge and the communication. This is one aspect. Another aspect, I try to let students reflect the digital part of digital humanity. So you just mentioned the collaboration. So we need to emphasize the collaboration between student, also between teacher and the student. This is a microscope collaboration. In the macroscope collaboration, I think this event, the value, the contribution of Korean University to hold this event to improve the collaboration between country, between different culture. So I think probably at the least one resolution to the puzzle of the digital frustration and puzzle of the digital environment and artificial intelligence environment. Challenge to us is increase the collaboration, emphasize the collaboration between individual and between organization, between country.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about talking about the collaboration, international scale, in the later part of our roundtable discussion. But you already raised that issue, so maybe we can naturally move on to that issue later on. But Professor Jun Wang touched on a very important part of this digital technology and digital tools. I think so. You mentioned it's very constraining at the same time. So you talked about the importance of human being, humanness, and this. Ironically enough, this digital technology is constraining the human uniqueness or human liberties, whatever. So I think it has two sides, right? The digital technology, or at the same time, is liberating. In terms of when you think about this Black cultural heritage, it's a very good tools to preserve and give voice to the silenced and minorities. Only through the digital technology, we have this website, archive, databases. All these tools offer very good opportunities for these records of minority culture can survive and being preserved, right? So in that sense, digital technology can be a huge tool for the minority people to to promote their own status. So in that sense, the digital is liberating. At the same time, it is constraining, right? This big tech technology, they control everything, not just our behavior, but our inner thinking, right? This algorithm, this YouTube algorithm know everything about my personal preferences, even my personal desires. So it's scary, right? So this control of individual beings and thinking. So we have this both sides of, it's like two sides of the coin. We have two sides of the digital. It's liberating on the one hand, it's constraining on the other hand. So I think that's one of the important jobs the digital humanists have to solve or have to talk about, right? And remind people, because big tech companies doesn't care, right? So we are the only people who knows about digital technology. At the same time, we are, as a humanist, we can talk about the danger of this big tech technology and control and platform economy and everything, right? So we began our discussion with the definition of digital humanities. Even though we talked about very different things, I think it comes to the same things. Ironically enough, humanness is very important, digital humanities. So why don't we have some feedback from the audience on the floor? So do you have any ideas to add on? Oh.
마이크가 여유가 있습니다.
Thank you so much for sharing your ideas about digital humanities. I'm going to confess, I still don't know what digital humanities is all about yet. But I think, expanding the horizon is great, because digital humanities is inherently interdisciplinary area. But I think at the same time, narrowing down our jurisdiction is also important. The reason is that there is a field called rhetoric. I don't think the field exists in Korea, but lots of my colleagues are rhetoricians. And they always claim that the rhetoric is about everything. But to me, a theory of everything is exactly the same as theory of nothing. Or theory of nothing is worse than theory of everything. Or the other way around, it does not matter. So that's why I want to have a little more restricted and narrowed down the version of the digital humanities. So what do you think about that?
Okay, well, so yeah, I think there's also another dilemma of digital humanities, because the word digital covers too many things. And everyone has a different idea of what digital means. So it's in a very fast way, it's expanding, right? The field itself is expanding. It is covering everything. So it's very urgent to focus down on the specific area. So narrowing down is also very important. So do you have any specific idea about this issue, this expanding? So I think this is one of the dangers we may encounter in the near future, because we are expanding, but it's at the same time it means it is becoming nothing, right? As you said, if you cover everything, it means nothing. So we have to be very careful about our what we do in the field of digital humanities. So do you have any other good definition of digital humanities? Because we already talked about this for 30 minutes, I think it's time to move on to the next issue, because we cannot stay on the definition. So because we talked about the definition, now it's a very good chance to think about the theory and methods. This theory and methods is also a very huge topic, but we cannot cover everything. But I want to ask you, what comes to your mind? What first comes to your mind when you think about theory in digital humanities in your own field, in your own interested field? So, what is the most promising or urgent theory or method? Let's talk about these two together: theory and methods. So, what's the most promising method or urgent issue in terms of theoretical discussion, or what is necessary for the better development of digital humanities in the future? You talked about education. That's another area which is very important. But so let me ask you, in terms of theory and methods, what comes to your mind first, and what's the most important thing in your field or in your own country? So.
Okay, so, and I know Rupika Reesam talks about this too, but for my field and for my work, the theory that drives our work in digital humanities is a Black feminist praxis where you are emphasizing the local and care for the communities involved, and that the work that you do, and I think Kim Gallen talks about this too. In Black digital humanities, you always have to be wary of the ways that the digital can be used to dehumanize and the ways that we can use the digital to rehumanize. And so that means not applying some kind of like universal approach that's always going to work everywhere, but actually working. The theory is to work through the local, through praxis. Which means that method, actually, I don't have a single method, because the method is going to vary depending on the local needs of the people that you're working with. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think as long as the goal is to serve the communities that you're working with, to rehumanize those communities, to serve those communities in a Black feminist theoretical praxis, then the method can actually vary quite dramatically.
Wow, so that's also another very, you touched on a very important issue too, because last 20 years, we have this word distant reading, right? So Franco Moretti suggested this method of distant reading as a solution to studying world literature. It's not just about literature, but it has a huge impact on digital humanities discussion and methodology. So we all kind of obsessed with this distant reading. So Leve yesterday mentioned this danger of modeling, right? The big data studies ignores these particularities. So you talked about this local and caring. So Black feminist studies is like maybe now when you think about the future of digital humanities, maybe it's time to move from the distant to the close, in another sense, right? It's not just a close reading of the real text, but these local issues, very specific problems in our living experiences. Yeah, it's a Black feminist or the Korean people. Everyone has their own specific issues. So once we begin not from the distant, but from the realities or living experiences, then we have maybe different methodologies, different techniques, and we can maybe creatively devise new methodologies, right? So I think that's very kind of paradigm shifting perspective, right? So from the global to the local, from the distant to the close. Not that we have to ignore, let's forget about the distant. No. Digital humanities is all about big data analysis. We have to hold on to the distant reading. But at the same time, we have to pay closer attention to the particularities and humanness and living experiences, the issue of local. Thank you very much. Okay, Song-Yeon.
Okay, first, I'd like to say that, one of the amazing things about doing digital humanities is that, all texts are equal in my study. So I like to call that decanonization. I mean, no text is canonized in digital humanities. I mean, no text is considered superior or more important than other texts. So each of the texts you are studying gets an equal value in your digital humanities study. But when you are doing a traditional qualitative study, I mean, you have no other choice but to select a few texts, a few works. I mean, it's unavoidable because your time is limited. So it's kind of unavoidable that some texts are treated as more important and more influential and more educational, and other texts are neglected. But in digital humanities, I mean, every text and every object gets an equal value. So I find this very amazing and sort of revolutionary. I mean, applying egalitarian principles to all objects of your study. Okay, so I'd like to stop for now.
Okay, so decanonization, because I'm a literary scholar, it's a very familiar issue, the decanonization. But it's also very much related to Molie's point, right? These local issues has a lot to do with this decanonized text and materials. Okay.
Just as we talked about the theory about the digital humanity, I want to answer this question from the aspect of learner. In recent years, we have organized several digital humanity workshops for our students, and from 2022, 2023, and 2024. In 2023, we organized an international workshop, collaborated with Harvard and Princeton. We held a 3-university collaborative workshop for digital humanity. So based on this kind of experience, that from their beginning, the students are interested in digital humanity because of the material they need to process become large and large. It's impossible for you to finish them by close reading. So in the first stage of digital humanity, people try to use various digital methods to deal with that kind of humanitic material, such as social network analysis, GIS visualization, text analysis techniques such as the topic model. This is the first stage of digital humanity, and these three are the very typical digital humanity method. But then AI came. AI can answer all your questions. You don't need to learn Python. It just asks it to do all this big work for you. So I think that the digital humanity now face a challenge by AI. Then I found that the student wants the unique answer. I mean, several years ago, one decade ago, the scholar of encyclopedia style are admired by everybody. But nowadays, we don't need the scholar like encyclopedia. You cannot exceed OpenAI in knowledge scope. The large language model has captured the world knowledge. But when you ask OpenAI, it gives you an answer. When he asks OpenAI, he gives you a same answer. In this situation, everybody wants to get a personalized, customized, individualized answer. How can we do that? This is a new situation. That means in this stage, in AI-driven digital humanity, we need to get more and more style of human. Because if if we retreat back to human side, everybody has his own understanding. Everybody wants his own contribution. Everybody has own interpretation to the same piece of task. But OpenAI will give you same answer because his answer based on the whole corpus of the data he collected from the web. Therefore, as mentioned to the theory that we try to, in fact, we try to solve this problem in 2023's workshop because when we talk about the large language model, it's kind of model. The strength of AI is derived from the model because it has captured the very nuanced pattern in the language. It's built a model. When you ask a question, it's not answer you like a human. It's answer you from the pattern, from the model it captured. It obtained from the analysis of large corpora. So for the teaching of the digital humanities course, students want to know for this kind of question, for that kind of material, for this disciplinary, for this field, can you give me a small model, a small theoretical model to deal with this kind of problem? Actually, we try to summarize this kind of model for historical material. For example, if you study the modern history of China, or if you study the ancient history of China, you need to follow different paths. Because, for example, if you study the ancient history of China, the material are only existing piece of the whole history. You cannot. It's impossible for you to collect all the material related to the ancient time. You have to use your imagination to fill the gap. So in this way, we build a teaching syllabus that how should you use the digital method. In the same time, you should pay attention. You should be cautious about the result produced by machine. But when we come to the modern history, basically is objective facts. I want to say that if we want to build the theoretical model or theory for digital humanity, we have to narrow down to specific area, narrow down to specific material.
Finally, we came to the issue of AI. Right? Everyone was thinking of AI. So, okay. So you talked about this huge large language model have this universal applications, and it just gives the same answers. But now maybe it's time to turn to maybe small language models or domain-specific large language models, something like that. So maybe digital humanities have feel that need more than any other field, because other fields, the contemporary language models are good enough, right? But in digital humanities, we are talking about the historical materials, Chinese material, Korean materials. So it all has a different domain, right? So the current modern day large language models cannot answer to these specific questions arising from digital humanities scholars and students, right? So maybe we need the specific domain specialized language models. Maybe we have to develop, and we can have the.
Therefore, we build the Medium platform. We let the user to define the scope of the material he wants to process. Yes, it's not comparable with a large corpora of the internet, but those scope of material are on the material that the researcher are interested in. And then we let the user choose the model, choose the large language model that's suitable to process this kind of material. For example, we found that we compared all the model developed in China. We found that DeepSeek is good at Chinese language processing because it had a lot of students from my university to annotate data, especially in the Chinese department and English department. But for the large language model developed by Douyin, the TikTok, it's very good at processing image and video because it's training data from TikTok. In this way, the researcher define his own material need to be processed. He choose the model that's suitable for processing this kind of material, then develop his own AI agent. In this way, he can get his unique answer, his individual answer, even with the AI tools. So this is the basic idea behind the system we built.
Okay. We already spent 50 minutes. Wow. So originally they gave us 2 hours, but I think that's too much. And we, actually, our another event is coming at 5:30, so we have to end this session before that. So we don't have much time left. So because we are talking about AI, and many people in this room has a lot of interest and their own problems or issues with the AI. So maybe you have something in mind. So if you have anything to say, don't feel free to raise your hand and make a comment in this session. And I think it's time to move on to the issue of the future of digital humanities, because we talked about theory and methods, and even you talked about AI. So in terms of not just the research and education, Professor Jun Huang talked about education a lot. So when we talk about the future of digital humanities, so let me ask you, because you are from different countries, why don't you talk about the current situation of digital humanities in your own country, and what is going on, and what is the problem, what is the key issue right now, and what kind of direction are you heading? So I think that kind of information will be very helpful to our audience, because many of us are from South Korea, and we are very much interested in other countries' situation. And so why don't you talk about the current situation and what has to be done in your own country's digital humanities field. At the same time, maybe you can talk about the education part. So we didn't cover much education, so it's a very good time to talk about education. So our future generation, they are living quite a different age. I'm kind of scared because we don't have problem, but in the near future they will graduate universities, and for more than 30 years they will live with the artificial intelligence. So it's a huge question and a very important issue, how to teach our students for the age of AI. So why don't you begin?
So I guess 2 things. So to start with the first part of your question, in the US at least, the humanities has been actively devalued for a number of years. Everyone says, don't do humanities, do STEM. It's not treated as a valuable degree for our students, and so a lot of humanities departments are being consolidated, and we're sort of fighting for our value, I guess, within the university. The digital humanities has been seen as a kind of way of revitalizing the humanities, although ironically the government just shut down all of the digital humanities funding programs. So perhaps that was a false hope. But I think that to come to the question of, the future, and certainly working with students, and this comes back to my public digital humanities sort of scope, is that I think what the digital humanities offers students very often is a way of doing work that can speak to the public and thereby have that kind of tangible sense of value, as opposed to some of the, as a literature professor, some of the essays and assignments that we often assign can feel to students, especially non-majors, as, okay, it's just a kind of busy work, or they're forcing, what's the value of this? What's the point of this? That kind of thing. And so I think that when you're doing work that can address the public, and especially when you're doing work where the communities are involved and the students are actually involved with their communities and they're seeing that kind of care, they're being asked to care, and they're seeing the kind of effect of their work on people. I think that really motivates students. It helps them understand the value of the humanities. It also fights against that kind of urge to just get ChatGPT to do your assignment for you, because they're seeing the real value of their work.
Yes.
And so that's something that I try to do in my classes, and I think that that's something that the digital humanities has brought to the humanities classroom, and that I think really has a place in its future.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned the origin of the word digital, right? Digitus is all about hand, touching, and making. So traditional humanities may remain kind of abstract and distant, and it's not tangible. But as you said, by introducing digital humanities methods to humanities classroom, students can feel the realities, this tangible sense of realities, right? So I think the digital tools give students the means to connect to the real world, right? So I think that's a very good point. Okay. So I wonder, before we move on to the Korean situation, I wonder about so I know digital humanities was a big thing in the United States for the past 20 years. But how about now and the future? So is it becoming more and more powerful, or attracting more students and scholars, or it's just stagnant? Or
Well, I think the issue is that it's resource intensive. It's very expensive, and with the government not funding it anymore, we have a limited number of private foundations that fund this work, and so I think that there is a feeling of crisis in the field at the moment, and that's why I'm trying to think about other strategies for doing the work, because the more dependent digital humanities is on not just big data but big money, the more fragile it is, because that money can be withdrawn at any moment. And I think right now we're operating in the US under a government that does not see any value in any version of the humanities.
so in your
Digital or not.
in your presentation, I was very impressed that when you say, why don't we do research without money, right? Why do we have to be totally dependent on this funding? Everyone is talking about funding. Why don't you do that? No money, right? I think that's a very easy way out. And the government is they change their mind all the time, especially, I have to be very careful. Trump administration, they are maybe cutting funding for humanities. So we are kind of becoming dependent on this commercial or government intervention or pressure to really build on our principles of digital humanities, of caring and preserving, giving voice to the minorities. We have to be somewhat free from funding. So I think this idea of not with no money, but why don't we do everything with little money, right? We can do that, right? With small resources, small computer, with small amount of money, right? So I think we need to change our mindset, right? Okay, so.
How do you
We are poor, and we will be poor.
But sometimes we need to purchase data, right? Actually, I have no problem, with obtaining my data because all my data can be acquired from Gutenberg project. And I'm my major is a 19th century poetry, so I have no problem with copyright. Right. But I know that some other humanist researchers need to buy their data, from a private company or from the government organization. Yeah.
Also, now we are having a debate. Finally, we are having a debate. We have different views, right? So, do you have any idea about this funding issue? I suggest we don't need money, but how can you do anything without money, right? Do you have any idea about this issue from the audience? No? Okay. Yeah, I think it's difficult, I know. But
Okay. So, anyway, I think the future of humanities methods lies in a kind of a synthesis between, what we call, distant reading and, close reading. So, computational methods are exceptional at revealing macro-level patterns that no human reader could grasp. However, interpreting the meaning of those patterns, for example, why they matter socially or politically, remains the essential domain of humanistic theory and close reading. So, is it possible to build a methodology that effectively scales between the macro level finding, which is mostly a statistical pattern, and the micro level interpretation? So I'm still wondering about that. Is it really possible to, build such a kind of methodology? Yeah. So that was my question.
okay, so I think because you are most interested in stylistics and stylistic analysis of literary text, that's why I think you are much more open to this small scale, detailed analysis of these textual subtleties, right? So yeah, I think there's a huge task to this compromise or this distant macro analysis and this micro level detailed subtle literary analysis. So that's a huge task. That's what something we have to always remember. All right. How about? I'm sorry. Professor Jun Wang. Sorry. Yeah.
I think the question is, you want me to share about the whole picture about China digital man, right? Actually, I'm unable to depict the whole picture of the China because it's too big. But I can only tell based on my experience for organizing, teaching workshop, and do research in recent years. Generally speaking, that I found that at least 2/3 of digital humanity project I saw in China is not digital humanity. The 1/3 is actually a digital library project, because our digital humanities center at the Peking University developed from a small digital library lab that I directed for 20 years, for more than 10 years. So I know what is digital humanity. If you focus on digitizing all kinds of material, build a digital system, build a platform, all of this belong to including archive, digital archive, all this belong to the digital library. This is 1/3. Another 1/3 is just apply some digital method like social network analysis and do some topic modeling, computation work, and draw some picture and give some statistics put your paper, they call it as a digital humanity research work. That is not digital humanity work. It's a research work decorated with digital method. So what is the real digital research? The digital humanity research. That I think that then we return to the first question: what is digital humanity? I think the real digital humanity work, the first criteria is that it must be a real humanity question. To raise a real humanity question, you must have a lot of reading. Only through the traditional close reading, you can form a real humanity question. To answer this question, comparing with the traditional research paradigm, we now have a huge amount of data. We now have AI tools. You can use all kinds of this new digital method, but still combined with your thinking, with your reflection, gained through humanity training. Then, and the last step, you must give a deep interpretation, deeper than the surface computation result, than the visualization result. So to achieve this, we must have a real conversation between humanities scholar and a technical like me, technical staff like me. The conversation, in fact, is very difficult and very challenging. We need to understand each other. And if we can achieve this, a real digital humanities research can be conducted.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Wow. So I think that's a very good conclusion. It was very shocking to hear that 2/3 of Chinese digital humanities are not digital humanities. It's just a digital library.
I think you better not tell my colleague in China.
Okay. Not you. Somebody else said 2/3 of the digital humanities are not digital humanities. But seriously, yesterday Javier Cha talked and he distinguished digital humanities and computational humanities. I think that's why he distinguished these two different disciplines by using different words. Because
I
when
want to say that is the innovation of STEM into the humanities.
Yeah.
But that's not the digital humanities.
Yeah. So. Oh, okay.
His response was unclear still.
Right.
Okay. Yesterday, in his presentation, he was clear. Digital is different from computational. So I exactly asked the question, then what is the difference? Then his answer was, it depends. So that means, is there a difference really? Because if we cannot answer the questions, I think Molie mentioned similar, if you cannot answer the questions, and then maybe we don't know the questions and we don't know the answers either. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm not Javier, but
I thought he said the digital is more about medium and the computing is more about method. So where if you're using computational analysis on an object, then that's computing. Whereas if you are digitizing something, putting it into a digital medium, and that's the work, then that's the digital.
That's the last sentence he said, but until that point, he just opened up many possibilities and eventually implying that.
Because I'm not Javier, but I can answer from his position. But I think Molie gave us a good point to begin to think about this distinction between digital and computational. So the way I always solve this problem is to get back to the original meaning, right? Digital means 0 and 1, these numbers. So digitization, right? Archiving, and when Jun Wang talked about digital library, so that's kind of a digital humanities, so digital, right? But computational means something else. By using these digitized materials, we compute, we calculate, we apply statistical methods to these materials and get from this material, out of these materials, the very important humanistic insights. So this algorithmic approach, algorithmic applications of digital methods is, I think, computational. When people talk about computational. So that's my own personal take. So don't ever think this is a definite answer.
Conclusion, but my background is linguistics. Because when I see, this is my first digital humanities conference, when I just see the presentations, so that's definitely computational linguistic style. Right? Computational linguistics. So people might say, wow, we have been doing that for 20 years, something like that, right? So topic modeling, lots of people use topic modeling, and people use the space as a tool. Then natural language processing, even natural language processing is a field of computational linguistics, right? Then the borderline, the clear, making a distinction between digital and computational. Is it really meaningful? Okay, I'm skeptical. No.
Yeah, this is a typical comment from linguists. We already did in the 1980s and 1990s. Why suddenly are you crazy about this? We already did. But because if we had Leve Manovich today, we had a very inspiring, you may have this discussion because that was what I had in mind in preparing for this panel discussion, because most of Korean digital humanists are focusing on textual materials. I think that's a huge mistake. One of the presenters today talked about audio-visual materials, but we tend to forget the importance of this visual medium. So how we began to develop digital humanities, first of all, was this totally changed situation of multimedia. Yeah. It was not just about textual transmission of information. So that's what is so different from traditional linguistics.
That's something I am extremely interested in, because there's a language processing there. But language and some image sometimes go hand in hand, right? So let's say there is graphic novels. Then there are text components and there are visual components too. If you can process both of them, that will be, to me, that will be a perfect digital humanities project.
Right. So that's why I kept, at the beginning of this roundtable discussion, that's why I mentioned Digital Humanities Manifesto 2.0. The key claim of that document was the importance of the visual presentation, visual media, visual communication. So most of the Korean digital humanities scholars are focusing on textual materials, but even though we don't have time left, but I really want to make sure it's not just about text. It's all about this multimedia mediums and visual, audio, even interactive game, all these things. I think Leve was yesterday showed very well the examples of what kind of digital humanities studies can be in terms of audio-visual analysis and even data visualization, right? It's all about design. So design is the key component, should be key component of digital humanities field. So, but that's one thing I'm feel sorry about that. So it's 5:13. So we have to conclude our discussion. We can. It's all about collaboration. We talked about education. And Professor Jun Wang talked about this, not just simple 2 or 3 scholars collaboration, this large-scale, macro-scale international collaboration, right? So we had a very good chance the last 2 days. We have many scholars from different countries. We communicate with each other. So we know now, I know you, so we have to work together to do some very interesting humanistic questions to solve that. And it's East Asian comparative studies, and I think there's a lot of things to do, and many of scholars here are very much interested in this international collaboration. So, having said that, in terms of education too, we had a very good project. It was connecting all these universities in East Asian universities. So, because we have a lot of universities are trying to introduce launch the digital humanities undergraduate or graduate program. One big problem is that the lack of educators, lack of professional digital humanists. That's a huge problem. So one thing he come up with was that why don't we connect all these universities, so networked education. So Jaehyun, can you just, as a concluding this panel discussion, why don't you talk about that huge project we did together, right?
Thank you very much for inviting me to the last conclusion part. But I mean, I'm not qualified to say that. I mean, he is one of the members of our, colleagues of our collaboration. And 2 or 3 years ago, we shared the problems together, teaching digital humanities in each university. Because, as Yongsu said, and we have a lack of scholars and a lack of educators in teaching digital humanities. But some of the scholars in there. So why don't we collect them together to teach and then come up with joint teaching courses and have a language, so credit exchange programs and blah, blah, blah. But then it didn't work out that well. Because, the barriers of individual universities so high. And then in order to do that, we need to change all the, university curriculums and even, teaching languages. Some of the universities required to teach in English, and some of them are teaching in Korean. And then, so it was really difficult. So our project is half succeed, but I guess, Korea University and other university, they got some funding from the government exactly to do for this. Making a consortium and then have educators together to teach different and come up with the different curriculums in DH education and then exchange students. So maybe Seung-eun and other educators in Korea University might be able to say the results of the project so far.
So maybe
No.
one of the professors in Korea University has to answer, because we had this idea of networked education, but in reality, Korea University got the funding from the government, and they have to do a networked education, but they refused to answer. So because it's time to conclude this roundtable discussion. So before we conclude this discussion, I'll give you a last chance to raise a question or make a comment. Anyone? Nobody? Okay, that's good. Oh, you have question. Okay, just one person. Okay, no more chance. All right.
I don't know whether I can share my personal problems doing some DH research here, but I feel like I caught up in the middle between the two fields. One is cultural analytics, and the other one is AI-generated things, especially narratives. So I'm in the field of Korean literature, and then using some computational analysis to do, and then work on the 1920s magazines and other stuff. And that's my cultural analytic part. But then suddenly, AI-generated narratives came in, and then I'm working at the science and technology-oriented school, and then a lot of students and then graduate students are working on generating narratives using the LLMs and then advanced technologies. even, I mean, as I mentioned, you mentioned, like multimodal training, they transforming the text into video, audio, data, and then so pieces of work. So nowadays, what they're working on is to using the short stories and the novels to come up with the video clips. And then some of them is working. And then while they're doing so, I mean, as a literary scholar, what can I do? What should I do to teach and then help them to, and then guide this kind of AI-generated literary pieces? How can the literature can involved in this transformative process and then help them to move further? That's one thing. And the second one is, how can we interpret AI-generated text in the field of literature? That's really challenging to me because, I mean, the lack of my knowledge, it's kind of difficult to get myself involved in interpreting AI-generated text yet. So, in between these fields of cultural analytics and the interpretation of AI-generated text, I don't know what to do. Do you have some ideas? Could you help me out?
Maybe literary scholar has to answer these questions. You're English major, right? But I think it is too difficult a question because even you cannot solve this problem. How can you? But do you have any suggestion or So let's make it short because this is
your comment reminds me that, I mean, there are some values, some theoretical or critical values that we must refuse to compromise in embracing, big data and AI and computational methods. So what do you think are those values? Values that we must protect. Well, would you agree to the idea that there are some values that we must refuse to, compromise in embracing, digital humanities and computational methods? You don't understand my question? Okay.
I think it's not time for question. You have to end this session.
I'm asking all of you.
Okay. So maybe Molie, maybe you can give a last word to this roundtable discussion because in terms of local public digital humanity, in terms of public digital humanities, what can be not just the negative side, but what will be the positive way of AI generation of images and maybe I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm the biggest AI skeptic in the room, so I probably don't want to ask me this question.
So it's a very almost impossible question to answer. So
I think that I worry so much about. I mean, I'm interested in these sort of agent AIs where you've built it using your own sources. I think the fear or the kind of anxieties around AI, first of all, it's the sort of the surveillance that it's sort of like taking your things and then spitting them back out without crediting you for the thing that it's reproducing. It's making errors. It's always veering toward the dominant. So minoritized communities are often being misrepresented or collapsed through these models. And so I'm very skeptical about them generally. I am interested though in the way, but it can be useful for, like, say, transcribing. I use AI generated transcription software, but it always has to come back to the human. The human has to be there to correct.
So one last thing. I'll give you a very good example. We had a physically impaired people and they cannot speak. And we gave them AI tool to draw by typing a picture or images, generating images, that was very healing tool. So AI is not just a bad thing, it can be healing and liberating. Okay, let's conclude this session. Thank you very much, everyone.